Bronny James, the son to King James, isn't living the dream many had envisioned. Just a few months into his NBA career, critics are already predicting the end of his future. Such is the harsh truth about Bronny James's future. From the weight of sky-high expectations to the harsh realities of the NBA, here's the story no one's telling about LeBron's eldest son. On October 22, 2024, at the Crypto.com Arena, the Los Angeles Lakers opened their season against the Minnesota Timberwolves. With 4 minutes left in the second quarter, history was made. LeBron James and his 19-year-old son Bronny checked into the game at the same time, becoming the only father-son duo to ever play in the league together, let alone on the same team. It was a moment for the record books. LeBron, still dominating in his 22nd season, and Bronny, making his NBA debut. It was a fairy tale, the king and his son donning the same jersey under the relentless glare of the media. But the fairy tale began and ended right there. Ever since that night, things haven't gone smoothly for the James family. The harsh truth is that even with a guaranteed contract, Bronny James's NBA future is far from secure. From carrying the weight of his father's legendary status to facing scrutiny over controversial contract details, from a shocking medical scare to whispers of nepotism, his journey has been anything but easy. Today, we're venturing past the father-son highlight reels and viral social media posts to discover the real story. This is the story no one is telling about Bronny James, the hidden struggles, the backstage drama, the mounting tensions, and the very real possibility that his dream of a long NBA career might be slipping through his fingers. The clock is ticking, and not even basketball royalty is safe in a league where performance is king. To fully appreciate where Bronny stands today, let's rewind to draft night in the summer of 2024. The entire basketball world was bracing for the moment everyone knew was coming. LeBron had always been vocal about sharing the court with his son before retiring, and as a master of media management, he ensured there was plenty of hype surrounding Bronny possibly becoming a Laker. Of course, it wouldn't be a James story without a touch of drama. There were reports of other teams interested in drafting Bronny. However, behind-the-scenes moves were made to make sure that didn't happen. According to Bob Myers, LeBron's agent, Rich Paul, threatened any NBA team that wanted to pick Bronny that if they did, Bronny would instead go play overseas in Australia's National Basketball League. LeBron did everything possible to make his dream of seeing Bronny in a Lakers jersey come true. And then it happened. Bronny James was drafted 55th overall by the Los Angeles Lakers, fulfilling the father-son wish that had captivated fans and media for years.
With the 55th pick in the 2024 NBA Draft, the Los Angeles Lakers select Bronny James from the University of Southern California.
Their dream was alive, and basketball enthusiasts everywhere were excited, or at least curious, to see what Bronny could bring to the professional stage. Social media erupted with highlight reels of Bronny's high school days, early college clips, and of course, the inevitable comparisons to LeBron. But everyone knew this was more about LeBron's dream than Bronny's. And after 22 years atop the sport, LeBron had earned it. However, the fairy tale began to fade soon after. Events on and off the court started warping this perfect storyline into something of a nightmare. Bronny was about to find out that having a famous father could only shield him so much. In a league under relentless scrutiny by media, former players, critics, and fans, every move gets magnified, and not even the son of a legend is spared from the brutal realities of professional basketball. Speaking of being the son of a legend, it is a double-edged sword. Sure, being the son of LeBron James comes with a list of perks that most players can only dream of. Access to elite training facilities, private coaching from an all-time great, financial security, global name recognition. But it also came with its own share of crushing burdens. From the moment Bronny started dribbling a basketball in middle school, cameras were rolling. Viral clips of him in AAU tournaments, high school showcases, and ESPN highlights painted a picture of immense potential, but also relentless scrutiny. That spotlight also amplified every perceived flaw. People questioned whether Bronny's game truly merited the attention, or if the media was simply dazzled by the name on his jersey. Was he actually an elite prospect, or was the hype artificially inflated by the enormous brand that is LeBron James? And let's not forget the immense pressure LeBron placed on Bronny, intentionally or not. By openly declaring his desire to play alongside Bronny in the NBA, LeBron essentially set a ticking clock for his son's career. Bronny wasn't just working toward the NBA, he was racing against time, carrying the weight of fulfilling his father's dream. After all, LeBron won't dominate the league forever. To be fair, many scouts saw promise in Bronny. He showcased above-average athleticism, an improving shooting form, and a high basketball IQ that suggested a solid foundation to build upon. But was it enough for the NBA right now? Or would he have been better off developing under less pressure, away from the unrelenting spotlight of an NBA roster? The answer seems obvious. Trouble for Bronny started immediately after his drafting. The initial response to Bronny's selection was mostly positive. Everyone saw it as LeBron's chance to create history by playing alongside his son. The general assumption was simple. Once the dream was fulfilled, Bronny would go through the grind, play in the G League, prove himself, and earn his spot. But everything changed once the details of his contract became public. Even though Bronny was selected in the second round, the Lakers handed him a 4-year, $7.9 million guaranteed contract, an amount far beyond what you'd expect for someone picked at 55. Comparisons immediately arose between Bronny's deal and the minuscule or partially guaranteed contracts of players drafted around him. The whispers of nepotism turned into deafening roars, with both critics and fans questioning the fairness of the deal. Bronny's past record was average at best. Nothing in his earlier career suggested he warranted a multi-year, multi-million-dollar deal. The constant defenses from the Lakers, including head coach J.J. Redick's assertion that Bronny earned it, only added fuel to the fire. To many, this wasn't about merit, it was about marketability. The NBA is a star-driven league, and everyone knew this was LeBron pulling strings behind the scenes. The deal wasn't about Bronny's potential, it was about keeping LeBron motivated and wearing a Lakers uniform. From a business perspective, it made sense. Franchises thrive as much on marketability as they do on roster strength. But the vehement denials of any favoritism only made the backlash worse. The contrast with players drafted around Bronny was stark and undeniable. How could someone with such an unremarkable record command a guaranteed contract, leagues above others who had worked tirelessly for years? The deal made little sense from a pure basketball perspective. Was Bronny truly worth it? Not at all. Was his contract a calculated move to appease the king? Most definitely. In the hyper-competitive world of the NBA, where every contract is scrutinized, Bronny's lucrative deal symbolized more than just nepotism. It became a lightning rod for criticism, casting an even harsher spotlight on a young player already burdened by enormous expectations. The million-dollar question was whether Bronny's on-court performance would live up to that lucrative deal, or if it would mark the start of a spiral that left him fighting for his professional life. After watching him navigate his career so far, the latter seems to be the case. Well into the 2024-25 season, LeBron has defied his age yet again, proving he could still dominate in his 22nd season. Bronny, however, has struggled, averaging 0.5 points per game, 0.1 rebounds per game, and 0.4 assists per game. Those are not the stats of a player with a multi-million-dollar guaranteed contract. For a rookie stepping onto the world's biggest basketball stage, rough patches are normal. But for someone named James, the margin for error is razor thin. The NBA talk shows have lit up with commentary ranging from cautious optimism to brutal criticism. Some analysts sympathize, saying, "He's just a kid," while others bluntly declare, "He's not NBA material." Charles Barkley remarked that Bronny would have a target on his back from day one, and he was right. Defenders have brought extra intensity, sensing a chance to prove themselves against the son of an NBA legend. With every missed shot and turnover, the internet explodes with memes and condemnation, further intensifying the pressure on a young player already struggling to find his footing. Let's take a detour and rewind to one of the most alarming moments in Bronny's journey, his cardiac arrest during a USC practice session just months before the draft.
Bronny James, the teenage son of LeBron James, is recovering after going into cardiac arrest during a practice at USC. The incident happened Monday, and the 18-year-old was taken to the hospital and placed in ICU overnight.
Heart issues have tragically cut short the careers, and sometimes the lives, of elite athletes like Reggie Lewis and Hank Gathers. For Bronny, experiencing such a life-threatening episode as a teenager raised immediate questions about his future in basketball and even his long-term health. Amazingly, Bronny defied the odds and recovered. putting his name in the draft pool. But skeptics couldn't ignore the glaring red flags. Was he genuinely ready to return, or was his clearance fast-tracked to align with LeBron's highly publicized dream? Did the Lakers' medical team thoroughly assess his condition, or was external pressure to maintain the James legacy at play? In a league where durability and health are everything, a cardiac episode at 18 isn't just a concerning detail, it's a game-changing factor. The looming risk of re-injury or complications casts a long shadow over Bronny's future on the court. So, taking everything into consideration, it was no longer possible to ignore. The storyline had evolved from, wow, father-son duo on the same team, to, wait, is Bronny only here because of LeBron? The dreaded word, nepotism, caught fire in discussion forums, talk shows, and social media threads. Every unimpressive stat line or missed shot was framed as proof that Bronny was in over his head. It was glaringly obvious. If his last name weren't James, at best Bronny would likely be grinding in the G League right now, hoping to earn a 10-day contract. Yes, Bronny had shown glimpses of brilliance in high school and during his limited college career. But was he truly NBA ready? The harsh truth was no. Bronny found himself at the most inevitable crossroads of his life. It was time for him to do something he should have done earlier, or, to be fair, something the grown-ups around him should have insisted on: play in the G League. Soon enough, the Lakers made a long overdue decision, assigning Bronny to the South Bay Lakers, their G League affiliate. On paper, it was a sensible move. Many players have found their footing in the G League, adjusting to pro-level speed and physicality in a less pressurized environment. But, as with everything involving the James family, nothing was straightforward. Reports emerged claiming Bronny would only play home games to avoid the hassles of traveling commercially with the G League. When this turned out to be true, whatever little support Bronny had left began to vanish. Fans and analysts tore this decision apart. One of the key developmental aspects of minor league basketball is the grueling travel schedule, learning to handle back-to-backs and long road trips. By shielding Bronny from that, was he really experiencing genuine development? To complicate matters further, the Lakers allowed Bronny to bounce between NBA appearances and select G League outings. This didn't look like a genuine plan to nurture his talent. It looked more like an effort to keep a big name on the Lakers bench while appearing proactive about Bronny's needs. If this doesn't scream special treatment, nothing does. Bronny seemed to be receiving privileges at every turn. To make matters worse, Bronny's G League performances were underwhelming. In limited action, he struggled with consistency, managing efficient scoring in only a handful of outings. His shooting percentage dipped below 30% in some games, making it crystal clear that he needed time, real time, to develop. Then came another twist, a so-called heel injury that led some to speculate Bronny was being protected from further embarrassment in the G League. Social media rumors ran wild, accusing the Lakers of fabricating the injury to save face for both Bronny and his father. Eventually, the Lakers could no longer mask the situation. Finally, they allowed Bronny to travel with the South Bay Lakers, and in his very first G League road game, he achieved a career-high 30 points. He shot 13 for 23 from the field, adding 3 rebounds, 2 assists, a steal, and a block. At last, Bronny was being talked about for the right reasons. But let's call it what it is, a silver lining. It showed he has potential, but one good game isn't enough. To silence the doubters, Bronny needs to deliver consistent performances game after game to prove that he belongs. But that is easier said than done. Bronny not only has to worry about developing his skills and improving his performances, but he also has to navigate the tricky dynamics of an NBA locker room. NBA rosters are filled with players who fought tooth and nail to make it, guys who excelled in college, toiled overseas, or spent years grinding in the G League before finally landing a contract. Now, they're watching a 20-year-old with questionable readiness and a $7.9 million guaranteed deal take up a precious roster spot, purely because his father is one of the biggest names in sports history. The phrase, "target on his back," doesn't just apply to opposing defenders, it applies within his own team. If Bronny can't bring real value, some veterans or borderline roster players may resent the fact that he's leapfrogging the normal process. That's a recipe for friction, especially when LeBron publicly claims his son is better than half the league. It's now time for LeBron to let Bronny be his own man and carve out his own destiny. Meddling in Bronny's career, however well-intentioned, risks doing more harm than good. But it doesn't seem like LeBron is thinking clearly on this one. He still seems convinced he can design a perfect career for Bronny, a mindset that may ultimately backfire. This next development might sound like it was ripped straight from a sports sitcom. Rumors are swirling that LeBron might seek a trade, and if he does, Bronny comes along as part of a 2-for-1 deal. Think about how bizarre that is from a basketball standpoint. Teams typically weigh a player's value based on skill, fit, and potential. But if you want LeBron, you're required to take Bronny too. It underscores just how intertwined Bronny's career has become with his dad's. Some franchises might scoff at this arrangement, deeming it an unnecessary burden. Others, desperate for LeBron's waning but still elite talent, might reluctantly say yes. Yet again, the question remains. Does Bronny have enough merit on his own, or is he merely a footnote in orchestrating a final championship push for LeBron? And more importantly, is this the right path for Bronny's future? The best thing for Bronny would be to carve out his own path, not as a tag-along in his dad's twilight years, but as a player who earns his place on his own terms. It all boils down to one thing: performance. In the world of professional sports, performance is king. Prestige, lineage, and even massive fan followings can only hold you in place for so long. If Bronny's performance doesn't rise to a passable NBA level, the Lakers, or any team he's on, will have to decide whether it's worth continuing to invest in him. Hard truth, the NBA is brimming with hungry, undrafted players, seasoned G League vets, and international talent who can bring immediate help. Why hold on to a struggling rookie, no matter his last name, if he's not progressing? Plus, the financial aspect can't be ignored. Teams pay the luxury tax on bloated payrolls, and if Bronny's contract is cutting into the budget, front offices might rethink his selection altogether. More importantly, any influence that LeBron can wield will only last as long as he is still able to deliver on the court. The day he is not able to deliver on the court, there is very little he will be able to do to help Bronny's career if Bronny does not perform. Despite the bleak outlook, there are multiple roads Bronny's career could follow. 1. A full G League stint and rebuild. The Lakers, or a future team, could let him spend a year or two fully immersed in the G League grind. It's a proven development path for many late bloomers. Gary Payton II, for example, or Duncan Robinson, who honed his game outside the NBA spotlight. This scenario would require humility, patience, and a willingness to fail, but it could be the best shot at giving Bronny the tools to stick in the league. 2. Package deal trade. If LeBron wants another title run on a different team, Bronny may come as part of the bargain. In that environment, Bronny might see limited minutes or find himself bouncing between that team's main roster and G League affiliate. It'd be a high-pressure environment, learning from a new system while still carrying the nepotism label. Not ideal, but if LeBron wants it, there's very little anybody else can do about it. 3. An early exit. This is a truly harsh outcome. Bronny can't adapt quickly enough, and the Lakers or his next team decide they need that roster spot. He could end up playing overseas or in the G League with no NBA call-up in sight. In that case, he'd be forced to prove himself the hard way, away from the bright lights, hoping for a second chance down the line. Despite the doom and gloom, we can't forget that Bronny James is still just 20. Many NBA players don't hit their stride until their mid-20s or even later. The door isn't slammed shut, it's just hanging on squeaky hinges right now. If Bronny embraces the grind, committing to real development, acknowledging his shortcomings, and stepping out of his father's towering shadow, he might still evolve into a respectable NBA player. He's shown flashes of high basketball IQ, unselfish passing, and the occasional hot shooting streak. The question is whether those flashes can become consistent under the suffocating weight of expectations. Fans love a good comeback story. If Bronny manages to turn the tide in a year or two, the narrative might flip from "he's only here because of his dad" to "he persevered and proved the doubters wrong." But for that to happen, he needs time. And in the NBA, time is a luxury not often given freely. Sports careers move rapidly. A few months can change everything. If Bronny doesn't show tangible improvements, better shooting percentages, a more defined role, a clearer sense of his strengths, he's going to get left behind. Or worse. He could remain on the roster, but never get enough game time to make any kind of meaningful contribution. NBA teams don't hand out long-term jobs based on potential alone. especially when potential starts looking more like unfulfilled promise. LeBron's own timeline intensifies this. He's not going to play forever, and the Lakers are well aware of the short window they have to win championships with him. If the father-son angle isn't translating to on-court success, the franchise may decide to pivot. So, what's the harsh truth about Bronny James's future? Name only carries you so far. Bronny's last name opened doors, but the NBA demands performance. Royalty or not, if he doesn't adapt quickly, the league won't hesitate to push him out. Time is of the essence. At 20, Bronny has years to grow, but not all of those years can be spent on an NBA roster if he's not producing. A stint in the G League or overseas might be inevitable if he's to develop properly. Locker room politics are real. Resentment from teammates and the broader league community could erode team chemistry. Bronny's presence needs to be justified by consistent play, not just storyline potential. LeBron's shadow is immense. The father-son narrative is a double-edged sword. While it's a heartwarming story for fans, it also fuels accusations of nepotism every time Bronny stumbles. Health concerns linger. The cardiac arrest he suffered at 18 adds another layer of risk. Even if cleared medically, the specter of health issues could resurface at any time. Ultimately, Bronny's future hinges on work ethic, adaptability, and a little bit of luck. He must seize this chance, whether in the NBA or G League, to refine his game and prove he can stand on his own 2 feet, independent of his father's legacy. The story of Bronny James is still being written. He could fail spectacularly and become a cautionary tale of nepotism, or he could transform into a solid, maybe even all-star level player who eventually silences the critics. Somewhere in between, there's also a middle path, a serviceable role player who carves out a modest but respectable career. Hardly the glitzy narrative LeBron might have hoped for, yet a valid achievement for most players. Either way, the harsh truth is that Bronny's future is on a knife's edge, teetering between potential and reality in a league that waits for no one. For every father-son highlight reel, there's an equally brutal reminder of how unforgiving the NBA can be.